As far as stripping away the support picks are concerned, probably a little bit more of a back burner strategy. I think some of the obvious ones, maybe the Amir, the Terras. Genetics even pointed it out himself. Well, we know the Oni Warriors like to play Terra a bit themselves, so that could be a pretty heavily contested pick here throughout this set.
Yeah, I'm expecting bans to shake out largely how we become accustomed to seeing them. I mean, you're not going to see a whole lot of emphasis towards support, but kind of got to ban Yamoja, right? That god's incredibly strong. You might not see a whole ton of emphasis towards mid lane, but generally Tiamat finds herself inside of that ban column as well. Outside of that, that's where we're going to start to see some of these targeted bans. Kings in that first pick position were primed to take that Terra in the first slot, and, well, Oni Warriors shooting their shot early.
Interesting to see the Serket come through as such an early ban here, though, for the Camelot Kings. Mifflin, do you think that that's them taking note of the jungle or possibly support strip away?
Both. I mean, legitimately both. It's so hard to say. Serket, I think, does have a little bit more so a home inside the jungle right now. She's so good at clearing. She's got some of the most expedient jungle clear out of just about anyone inside of the jungle roster right now, so she hits her stride a little bit more quickly. But this Ymir ban is interesting. Almost invalidates what I was just saying, and it has been targeted bans through and through here. The Oni Warriors don't want Genetics looking comfortable.
Well, it's not a foreign situation for Genetics by any means. Have to remember, he has been probably one of the most popularly banned supports in terms of just not being allowed to take his signature picks that we've seen him pilot so successfully. But with Camelot Kings adding Artemis to their third ban here, if Oni Warriors don't ban the Odin, do you expect the Camelot Kings to maybe prioritize it first pick position, Mifflin?
They could do it. Does have great flex potential. We've seen that Odin has succeeded in the past, but Odin, I'm of the same vein of thought as aggro in that Odin is a god that is incredibly strong. It forces the enemy team to shift how they approach the match. It's, okay, do we need to pick up a Phantom? When do we want to look for these team fights? But you kind of want to pick it a little bit later into your draft, especially considering when there are options like Tiamat available. This god is just good. She's going to deal damage to anyone. It's not a requisite of, well, I need to build a composition around him, or I need to see a team comp that I can play Tiamat into. She fits in, plug and play, just about any composition and against just about any composition. So I think they went with the right path here.
Oni Warriors, though, with a very strong response, looking for all the early game aggression imaginable. They'll take the Osiris and the Odin for themselves in response to that Tiamat. So clearly an establishment of die potential already being reinforced here for the Oni Warriors. Gilgamesh will be a smart lock-in, I think, for the Kings. Don't really want to permit Tiamat to potentially just be completely ran down here, although I would be skeptical to see the Oni Warriors have trying to lean into that Gilgamesh after the fact. But Morgan Le Fay still up for grabs. Do you think that there's a chance for that one to come into play, Mifflin?
I hope so. I think Morgan Le Fay is incredibly strong and is going to get locked in here for the Oni Warriors. The only weakness of Morgan Le Fay is that she's kind of hard to perform on in the early game once there's a ton of lockdown CC on the other side, because she does not have a whole ton of mobility inside of her own kit. But up against Tiamat, up against Fafnir, I think Morgan Le Fay should be able to survive throughout the early game. It's really going to be up to Captain Twig on this Gilgamesh to put the pressure into the mid lane.
And I'm glad that you highlighted Captain Twig here, because honestly, Mifflin, if we're basing things off of last week's performances alone, not Twig's greatest week of all time by any means, but the Gilgamesh, I think, could be a strong bounce-back opportunity for him here today up against the Oni Warriors, because Winds of Shamash certainly going to be very limiting in terms of how well the Odin initiation is actually going to shake up, because all that blind could make it a little bit more complicated, I would imagine, when trying to fight inside of that Odin cage.
Could do. And to speak to your point about Twig struggling a little bit, wasn't it Gore that put out a tweet that Twig had essentially doubled his deaths in Phase 2 off of that last week's performance? It was a unfortunate circumstance he finds himself in, but certainly took it with a grain of salt. I'm sure he's going to bounce back just fine. What do you think of this Artemis, by the way? I mean, now that I got an ADC on the desk with me, I gotta ask, because I think she's probably the best hunter in the game right now.
Competitively speaking, I think she is the best hunter in the game right now. Even when you have the likes of an Odin to try and control her, it's just simply not worth the risk. Sure, her autos alone absolutely destructive.
They're nuts.
They chunk so hard. She hits so hard. It doesn't even make sense, man. And not only that, but with Ickful and Bow being such strong additions to the rest of her kit, largely looking at that Silver Branch and the passive that it provides, because you're just guaranteed a freebie 600 damage with that boar, if not higher. So it's just difficult, and especially at a competitive level of play, trying to actually maneuver throughout the Tusky team fights. It's just a headache and a half. Why bother dealing with it? But Rom, actually another hunter that I think we need to keep our eyes on here, because Rom, I think, he's almost like a watered-down version of Artemis in a sense. We've seen him as a response pick oftentimes to the Artemis, even though there is the 1v1 counter matchup, so to say, with Artemis and Rom. It's more so what Rom's able to control with the Astral Barrage, and I love the Rom pickup here for the Kings, because it's just, Netroid can just look for Astral Barrage snipes, while Captain Twig, Genetics, Variety, they just look for the collapse.
Yeah, I think Rom is a great pickup here, especially into a god like Morgan Le Fay, who really just gotta hope that he's gonna miss his shots, right? I mean, you don't have a way to leap out of it. You can maybe boost your movement speed a little bit. You don't have a stealth. You don't have any traditional movement abilities. So I
think that Morgan is very good, but until proven otherwise, and maybe this will be the game that does, I think you got to give the default matchup to Tiamat. I think that she is the goddess to beat in mid right now.
One thing I'm already noticing different amongst the builds here is Neilma's gone for tier 1 towards this Voidstone, maybe even the Stone of Binding early. How does that kind of change up his early playstyle versus Genetics, who's going for the more traditional Gauntlet of Thieves?
Yeah, I'm very curious as to where Neil is going to go with this. It looks a lot like the Glowing Emerald, but it isn't the same thing. It is a little bit more magical protection. I wonder what he's going to go with it right off the bat, because nothing screamed, you know, I don't really want Voidstone first item. I mean, Kuzenbo is a much more aggressive support than something like even Fafnir, though Fafnir does, I think, lean on the more aggressive side of Guardians that you could play. Kuzenbo is looking to put out damage enough to threaten Nika or Cuvo. I mean, that does amplify your dive a little bit. It's not something we see all the time, but it extra little point in Heavenly Agility's favor is that it counteracts that relic.
Well, this might be the first non-coach sub game that we're seeing the Xing Chen brought here into the solo lane. Let's see how it does here with Cuvo Fred invading, but unsuccessful to do so on that blue buff. That will go the way of the Camelot Kings. Variety, however, will be losing out on that experience Harpy.
Really, for the Kings. I think that when the Kings are playing at their best, it's because of how well their front line has played, and that allows Big Man Tings and Netroid to really shine. Not to take credit away from those backliners, because they've obviously been fantastic, but when the Kings are playing well, I love their front line.
With the Samash used, Captain Twig leaps in, Cuvo leaps out, Variety gonna go for the ult, but not get any buddies. Cuvo's able to blink out of that one just in time. Instead, it'll just be Totem of Ku on Twig's rotation to get something for going to that side of the map.
It's not like Variety had 0 kill potential with his ultimate. With it, he needs help, of course. He needs a jungle gank, but no CC immunity for Nika or for Fred. That could be resulting in a kill at any point, but he's already got 20% CDR from the Breastplate of Valor, so it won't take long before it's back.
Well, Genetics pushed away as the purple buff stolen by the Oni Warriors. Genetics now down to half health, and Dardes pushed under tower. Twig trying for the invade and gonna get a nice wins of smash on it. Nika keeps locking him inside. Nika is just trying to find a way out. Variety leaps over the cage wall and a leap in by Twig. They're looking for first blood, but they just can't find it.
And on the way, here comes Dardes on this Morgan Le Fay. Twig now very low on mana.
He's gonna get shoved against the wall by the Dragonflight. Into the ult goes Dardes. Needs all 3 shots and some more, but misses the 3rd. Variety gets a nice ultimate as well. Gets the beads out of Dardes to help bail Twig out to get him out of danger.
Man, feels like that should have been a good play there for the Warriors, but it ends up being more favorable for the Kings. And they need the farm in order to get to that point. ADC's build is really cheap right now, so it doesn't take very long for them to come online. All of the bows are pretty inexpensive for them. So I think that it makes sense that this is the way the meta's gone.
Netroid spots voting Neil on across the wall. He'll go up into the sky, look for the snipes, gets 2, needs the 3rd one just off the mark because the Bifrost comes through for Vote, but now Neil's in trouble, stuck inside the Winter Shamash, and it looks like he'll fall for first blood. Netroid's the one who's going to get that one. Cuvo tries to lock it down, but he gets locked out himself. Netroid picks up the double kill. Now Dardes on the run. Will that be a 3-pick for him? No, Tings will take the 3rd one away, but that's 3 quick on the board for the Kings.
Man, I mean, Neil is caught at that point. He's already used Watery Grave, wins a guaranteed get off me tool. It's just, that's one of Heimdall's strengths, is he's an ADC that requires frontliners to buy beads in order to play against him.
Genetics Genetics dragging the Kappa around with him. That's the
Hey,
words I'm trying to look for on
Don't
that
worry,
one.
it's not like you talk for a living, you know? Like, it's not a big deal.
Sometimes I do words good, but today not that day. Variety and Genetics going to team up on the Dardes and force him under the tower. Hits the ultimate out of Dardes, throws Cuvo into the backline. Transformation comes through. Ting's looking for some damage. Cuvo will make it out, but Variety will not as Neil gets it with the Watery Crave. Twig has to use the heroic leap just to get back to the safety of the tower. Ting's being chased by Voten into the realms. He'll go. Genetics pushed against the wall, but Netroid has rotated over for some extra safety. Up in the sky, looking for some snipes, but who will the target be? It's going to be on the Dardes, and not enough damage goes through.
Genetics now has to de-transform in a weird spot, but not too deterred. Nika is the frontline left here for the Oni Warriors, as they're all right around half HP.
Netroid, the only really healthy one of them. A nice stun comes out from Tings. Might be enough to take down Neil. Leap is not going to find a home. Nika dives under the tower to find Netroid, and Nika will manage to find his way out, but I can't say the same for Tings. He's being chased, consumed onto Cubo, but he's solo in mana. Cubo will be able to pick him up.
Man, everyone on the Warriors on a sliver of HP as Nika was getting greedy for the kill under the tier 1. Good bait by Genetics, and you feel like Nika has to die for it. Oh no!
Kick missed by Captain Twig. The level 14 Odin just makes it out.
A lot of gold, and was able to start to finish off some of these items. I think it was Cuba who got that last hit on that little skirmish, and they really needed to shut him down. So a good turnaround there from the Warriors. Really able to spread that team fight out nicely.
Well, Twig not going to get that drop kick because Cuba uses the ultimate to get out of danger. Netroid has to roll away. Genetics walking past Neil, a little bit under level compared to his enemy support there. About a half a level separating them. Red buff gets stolen away. No, it doesn't. Variety able to confirm the red buff for his team, making sure that they can go through Ruination a little off the mark there. Nika at half drops down the cage. The Watery Grave as a zone, all to hold for the Gold Fury to go the way of the Warriors. Genetics pushing forward, gets a stun onto Neil up in Draconic form. Variety also gets the ultimate just to lock him in place, but all of this for Neil, I mean, they already got the gold.
Already got the gold, and the Warriors very happy with that trade, and you see the space control that they're really sending Nika and Neil to do. Watery Grave plus a Ring of Spears is a whole lot of area that you just can't walk through if you're the Kings. But I want to see Netroid use that ultimate a little bit more aggressively there. I mean, you don't have to walk through that zone. The team's going to say, all right, I've got to buy Divine Druid. You know, I've got to buy a Brawler's Beat Stick. But take a look at what the Kings have. They don't have any anti-heal right now. And now, even though you aren't building that lifesteal, the actual base lifesteal on the ultimate might actually be more impactful now than it would have been otherwise. Interesting sort of idea here from Dardes, and I'm a fan.
We get a nice drop kick onto Cuvo and forces the ultimate out. Winter Shamash also used, but Neil is more than happy on this side of the map, just trying to zone away Netroid. He throws the basics into the Kappa. Minion comes out, but Neil is fine with that one. In fact, now Nika's the one diving into the back. It's a cage onto Captain Twig and Big Man Tings. Twig is in a bit of a rough patch here. Bird Bomb not going to connect. Twig will make it out, but Genetics up into the Dragon.
Heavenly Agility came up big there for Captain Twig. Pretty much impossible to land a Bird Bomb on someone who sprinted.
Neil with the Watery Grave in the back line gets the beads out of Big Man Tings. Ultimate from Variety throws only one into the back line. Genetics de-transforms, and Variety has to leap back to the safety of his team. The 5 of the Oni Warriors are pushing back the Kings.
Man, really good spacing here from Nika. Nika is just controlling infinite space right now on this Odin, and it feels like the Kings just don't have an answer for him. Remember that he doesn't have beats or CC immunity. Variety is using these ultimates on Neil. They've got to find a way to get enough damage on Nika. I agree with Variety's decision for now. They don't have the damage to kill Nika, even if he got Xing Chen ulted. But once the carries start to get in there, when get their damage numbers up, you have to imagine that Nika's job is going to get a lot harder.
Yeah, he's going to get a hammer and set up for Captain Twig. Beads to use just to make sure that boat doesn't get slammed against the wall. Cage comes down, holding Genetics in place. Dardes is under siege by Variety, who gets stunned out by Nika. Minion comes through, snipes. Not going to be enough because the Aegis keeps Dardes alive and healthy during that.
But a good stagger here from the Kings. They're able to make sure that you use Vote's relics. You get a relic from Dardes, and immediately they head to fire.
Straight onto it. Neil is pushing forward. Nika on the way as well. Fire Giant down to half health. Nika blinks in. No ult available for him. Fire Giant now under half. Variety the only one pulling the major zone for them. Neil blinks to the back line with the Watery Grave. Drop kick onto Nika, who's at half, but it's Captain Twig who's the one in danger. He'll fall down. Genetics has to leap away. Big man Tings
Whoa.
with the ultimate gets some good damage. Variety takes down Dardes into the Bifrost, tries to go vote, barely manages to make it through. And Neil is now the one stuck in the middle of 3, and he'll fall down to Tings.
No one has an answer for this Tiamat right now. No anti-heal on one side, as we were talking about, but no anti-heal on the other either against a Soul Gem Typhon's Fang Tiamat, who's just able to really free cast in games that are this close, because if one team just gets marginal positional advantage and then ends up losing the Oni Fury, you're going to spread out and farm, and the other team isn't ahead enough to really threaten you on FG. I don't mind giving Furies like this in this situation.
Variety and Genetics taking a little bit of damage. One from the Fury, one for the enemy team. Nika down under half health. He's got to leap away. Big man Tings walks forward and throws out the Typhoon onto Neil. That'll chase them out for a little while. Genetics back onto the Fury with Netrioid. They're burning it down, but they're never holding on to it. They seem to give it up every single time. Variety low in the backline. He's going to get one with the Whirlwind. It's going to be Neil who will fall down to Netrioid. Cage comes out, only holding Twig in place, but he can walk through thanks to the Phantom. And it's Big Man Tings in the backline, able to help drop him down. 2 for Netrioid, 1 for Variety. They've also lost Twig in the process. Now looking at Dart as a leap over the Dragonflight. Variety pushes the Warriors back.
Really good job of getting up and over that CC, and even though there's only 2 members here for the Warriors, the Kings are not looking particularly healthy. They can't just go to this Fury and get it for free if Fred and Dardes are still around.
Variety still on the front line, make that Big Man Tings the front line for this Camelot Kings, pushing them away from the Fury, and looks like Oni Fury finally will go the way of the Camelot Kings after about 3 minutes of back and forth pulls onto this objective. Variety is still looking for blood.
Is Dardes dead?
Not quite enough. One more tick would have done it, but
Netrioid
Dardes
still has his, in comparison to Dardes still having his. Those are really the only ones who came out unscathed from that. That might be able to start to push this game in the Kings' favor. Not so much because of the Oni waves, though no one is answering this left side Oni wave from the Warriors, but because I think the Kings came out with an easier composition to punish the Warriors for not having their relics.
Looks like Neil is going a little more Damic-centric on his build, going for that Enchanted Spear, also that Stone of Binding very early on we talked about. So he's lacking some of those protections that he so desperately needs. And it seems like if he had an extra protection on him instead of one of these damage, maybe he doesn't die as hard in these fights, but want to hold that as the Fire Giant started up. Cuvo Fred singled out amongst the team. He's going to have to use his ultimate away immediately. Minion catches him out to slow him down. Twig going to grab him with the Winds of Samaj, lock him in place, and take him down. Big man Tings with the kill.
I mean, Fred got kicked against the wall, and then instead of backing back towards his team or walking back towards his team, he walks in underneath that rock, and as soon as he does that, he needs to blink the damage. He can't afford to just ult it, because then that's exactly what happens. He just gets chased down, kept in combat by the winds, and then he's got nowhere to go. He didn't have beads up at the time. Definitely just a pathing mistake there from Fred that cost him his life.
Now that sets back up for the Fire Giant yet again. Genetics in that dragon form gets the Coerce onto 2 to try and help burn this down. Fire Giant's down to half. Nika trying to step forward. He's going to get knocked up in place and drops down the cage. Neil in the middle as well with the Watery Grave. Forces a lot of damage on a Twig. He's going to leap away. Genetics at half. Variety, however, on top of Dardes, not giving him an inch to breathe. And Netrioid just pumping basic after basic onto Neil. Nika gets thrown into the team, but nobody pays attention to him. Nika may be able to just walk out because of that.
He will be able to survive, and maybe Variety's CC is going to be good enough, because here comes Big Man, but Fred is back off the respawn, and he nearly has his ultimate back up.
He's full health as well, but Big Man Ting's very healthy on this Tiamat. About half mana, they're going to make a full back to base. Throws out the Ruination just to try and deter Cuvo Fred.
Skirts of the fight a little bit more, and with that, it means that there isn't really anyone to put pressure onto the back line of the Kings. That's still been the problem in these team fights. Still 2 deaths between the 2 backliners.
Variety and Nika going to slap it up a little bit here into the solo lane. Meanwhile, Genetics will continue to push forward towards this Fire Giant. Still has not fallen. A lot of action around this right side of the map in the last few minutes, but no team's been able to confirm the objective. Neil pushed against the wall under half health, and that Typhoon going to do a little bit of damage and poke him back, sitting at just over a quarter health on the support. No way he can stick around. Back to base he goes.
That's a good identification from the Kings. Hey, he built Divine. It's going to help his dive. He's going to do a lot more damage. But we don't have to respect his tankiness anymore. We just don't have to.
Fire Giant started up. Variety throws Nika away from the FG. Cuvo Fred dives into the front line, but he has to use the ult to get out. Big man Tings as well has to throw out some damage just to hold it through. The cage comes out into the sky as Netroid looking for some snipes or maybe just to stay alive for the time being. Neil stunned down. Variety getting very low, but Netroid and Big Man able to take down Neil, who dove a little too far in. Variety solo in health, looking for the last shot, but the spear gets canceled out, and Genetics is able to clean up Nika.
Oh, what a stun from Big Man, and immediately he's going in onto Dardes and Vote, and he's in a great position in order to make the fight go the Camelot Kings' way. Netroid will find Vote on the back end of that. There's a good fight coming for the Kings.
Well, Netroid able to get 2 big ones in the middle of that fight
Bifrost
there.
placement, all that kind of stuff. This Morgan Le Fay also having above that of Cubo Fred, who was really yet to make any sort of offensive impact in this game.
Twig going under the tower, kicks Vote against the wall, but he's got the beads and the Bifrost to get out of there. Variety and Twig now rejoining on this left-hand side with the rest of their team as they look to push towards this left side Tier 2 tower. We did see Fire Giant does manage to go the way of the Kings from earlier on. Tier 2 tower falls down, and towards the Phoenix they will go.
Right now you've got Genetics using that transformation. Phantom is up and available. No beads for Big Man. That's the big one. Can they punish him for it?
Immediately into the back goes Neil, pushing Genetics under the Phoenix. Variety is the first one in there, but Neil is the first one down. Captain Twig claims him with the help of Big Man Tings. Phoenix is getting chunked down, and no further defense from the Warriors as their bird falls.
It was close from Neil. He blinked in, tried to sumo slam Big Man, ends up getting a different target. If that had been the Tiamat, this is a totally different fight.
Genetics on the front line with Twig, now looking for the mid lane Phoenix. Heavenly Agility goes through, into the back line goes Variety, in the cage. Drop down from Nico, holds Big Man in place. He's got to leap away, but Vote is falling low to Variety in the backside. Netroid will find Nika. Captain Twig still diving. Cubo Fred now on the left-hand side. A slow and a basic will take him down. Mid lane Phoenix will fall, and it's only 2 to defend against the might of the Camelot Kings. Dardes throws out the Dragonflight, but it's a push in the back by Captain Twig. Unfortunately, he's got to use the beads, and onto the Titan they will go. Camelot Kings clean up game 1.
Very Kings-like game, isn't it? I mean, not exactly the fastest-paced game. They control the early game.
Yeah, but really, what can a Soul Odin do on his own? Well, not much.
Odin is great when it comes to team fight engagements, but that's only when you're actually able to follow it up after the fact. And between the Phantom and just the outright burst damage in general, so much shred between that Tiamat and Rom, as you've already highlighted, Mifflin. It's just Netroid, Big Man Tings, pretty much just got to do whatever they wanted that entire game 1.
Yeah, and it's likely a byproduct of this draft. The Oni Warriors drafted a fair bit of dive potential between the Odin, the Osiris, even the Kuzenbo, but their backline doesn't have the ability to follow up from that level of range. Morgan Le Fay, if she at any point tried to step up to follow up on the Sumo Slam or the Gungnir's Might from Nika, well, she got dove on immediately by the backline of the Camelot Kings. Tiamat so versatile, the second at any point he was given the range or the capacity to close gap on either Dardes or Vote, he was just doing that. He didn't care that he was getting dove by these tanky frontliners because legitimately just not enough damage output from them. Cubo Fred goes for a very squishy build and was reflected inside of these team fights as well. Osiris really wasn't
Commander Wait shortly, but what sort of adaptations or changes would you like to see the Oni Warriors make in response? Because they've opted for second pick here, Mifflin, so you have to imagine they have something up their sleeve.
I would like if they try and strip away that Gilgamesh that the Kings were able to get to in their second phase of picks. I'd like to see them try and emphasize a little bit more of their pressure inside of the solo lane as well. Nika has been a consistent pillar of aggression for this team. He's been one of the most consistent members. He's always been able to get pretty decent control of the Totem of Ku, and he's always ready to follow up on blue buff invades or going into the enemy back camps as well. But the Oni Warriors have shown a propensity as a team to like to play around that dual laner within that mid 3v3. I think that they should just play around one of their stars, and right now the brightest star on this team is Nika.
And you kind of touched on it during the picks and bans at game number 1, Mifflin, but I just want to revisit that discussion surrounding Odin. Do you think that that is a pick worthwhile for the Oni Warriors to establish as their initial 2-pick topic, or do you think that maybe they should try and prioritize picks elsewhere and maybe give an opportunity for Nika to possibly look for a counter matchup of some sort?
I think if you take Odin very early on in your draft, it kind of puts a timer on the efficacy of your Odin. You have to rotate out very early on, find these cages, very early before a Phantom can come online or something along those lines. Whereas if you wait a little bit longer into the draft, maybe see if the Kings go for some more immobile gods because they aren't dealing with this Odin early on in the draft, then this cage becomes a much larger threat. One Phantom isn't going to be quite enough in its own to just kind of invalidate what you're looking to do inside of the engagements. I think that I would prefer to see the majority of Odin picks come after the second phase of bans, but that's not to say that you can't perform on it early on. He does generate a lot of threat in the early game just by nature of existing. I mean, Ring of Spears is just good. His damage clear, or his clear in wave is just good. I know I'm saying just good a lot, and Tiamat pops on the screen, so I might as well shift my mentality over to that. She's just good, and somehow the Kings get her again.
Yeah, Oni Warriors seems as though they felt a little bit more concerned towards genetics god pool than anyone else, and a rather interesting takeaway here, but the Oni Warriors, they will run it back on the Odin at least, although they could look to switch up the Osiris to a Gilgamesh, and I don't think that that would be a poor look by any means. Instead, it's going to be the Morgan Le Fay immediately snap locked in, and this is definitely, I can already see the expression on your face. I know chat can't, Mifflin, but I'm right there with you. I feel the way that you just looked at me, and I think that the best way of breaking it down is when their mid lane has already been established here for the Camelot Kings.
Agreed.
You know they're not going to take Morgan Le Fay at any point throughout this top three. So to leave open both Osiris and the Gilgamesh, not to say that the Kings are going to prioritize both by any means, but it's just, well,
they did.
they certainly did, and this is where it just becomes. I guess I'll let you just take it away from here, Mifflin, because I'm a little bit speechless.
Yeah, the only reason the Oni Warriors would take Morgan Le Fay in this slot, for my money, is if they're worried that the Kings are going to flex this Tiamat into solo lane. And, well, we haven't seen Tiamat go into the solo lane at the SPL level very recently. I think maybe in Phase 1, FinoK took it to solo exactly once. Aside from that, it's generally Aquarius at the SCC level playing Tiamat in solo. So instead, the Oni Warriors essentially say, all right, we're going to hedge our bets. The Kings aren't going to take both. They're not going to take Osiris and Gilgamesh, so we'll just give them the pick of the litter. And that, in of itself, I think is kind of wrong. You want to take whatever you want instead. I'm not worried about them taking the Morgan Le Fay, so you can take that in your third slot every single day of the week. Instead, they say, all right, well, we're going to get one of them. We're going to get Osiris or Gilgamesh, and the Kings say, no, you're not. Those are both incredibly strong gods. We're going to shore up our solo lane and our jungle in one fell swoop, and somehow walk away with what could be one of the dirtiest drafts I've seen so far here in Phase 2.
This is, I'm right there with you. This is definitely not looking, I don't want to sell it just yet, you know, for a Kings 2-0 performance here by any means, but Chad, I can't stress it enough. This is a disgusting composition already from the Kings. It has every single category covered. You've got pressure, you've got survivability, you've got initiation, you have peel. Just, it's the checklist right now for the Camelot Kings all the way through, and we're only in the top 3 for right now, Mifflin. And I also really love the response as well from the Camelot Kings here, taking away the Kali. I think just eliminating as much of that late game potential or even shutdown potential, because Kali, I think, one of the better assassins if she's able to actually get online at chipping away at this sort of composition that we've seen from the Kings. So they're just kind of continuing to do it all and make sure that every corner is covered.
Yeah, I mean, the Kings could go for just about any hunter here or any support, and I'd say that they've essentially won the draft off their top 3 alone. But Cerberus, I'm not going to complain about that. That's another great beads burner. It's good initiation. It's good peel if he needs to facilitate that route as well. They can go towards just about any hunter because Tiamat is going to do a lot of the damage on her own anyway. 30,000 in Game 1. Yeah, let's go ahead and head back onto the Rom, who was a huge determining factor in Game 1. 25,000 damage from Netroid, and a lot of that was off of his ultimate engaging these fights. It feels like to me the Oni Warriors came into this week with a strategy that is very reminiscent of the draft that we're seeing right now. I mean, a lot of the pieces are similar, or at least fit the same roles, generally around this Odin, this Morgan Le Fay, and this Heimdall.
Gets to assist with it, of course, with the ultimate from range, as we've discussed a lot with the ROM. The way Big Man was playing the Tiamat was very much like a frontliner instead of a backliner in the first one, so I'd imagine that Dardes and Vote are going to be on the run here in game number 2. A lot of pressure on Neil in order to keep one of them alive in each fight.
Now, I know genetics is an important one to keep down, but I am very surprised that the Warriors were so willing to give up the Tiamat in a second game after the performance that Big Man Tings had. Maybe a bit of an oversight, or maybe they just felt that genetics is the big piece to the puzzle that they need to keep locked in. We'll see how it performs for them throughout this game, though.
But how many times can teams go with that idea and then get beat by the Kings before they realize that maybe that's not the plan? You know, like so many teams try and ban out genetics, and there are picks you have to take from him. I agree that you don't want to let him have Terra right now, but it's Tiamat, for God's sakes. Like, why is Big Man getting this? I don't understand.
You know, we've seen teams, they're like, okay, give it up in game number 1, then they get to game 2, and they're like, okay, that was a mistake. Let's fix that one. But the Warriors didn't do that this time. They had a great performance on this Tiamat in the first game for the Kings, and the Warriors are like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal, is it? Surely she's not that good. It was just genetics, right?
Yeah, just genetics. I have my doubts about that, but Variety has been nearly soloed this whole laning phase. He has been living on 1 HP the whole laning phase, and finally Nika says, enough is enough, man. I'm getting this kill. Over
on the side of the Warriors. But yeah, I mean, Twig in that assassin mentality, it's as long as I can help get a kill or help get my team out of it, then we're good to go, even if I lose my life onto, you know, kind of, and I think it fits with his Naja playstyle as well. You know, Naja, one of the quintessential, I trade my life, but at least we got the kill on the back end kind of god. So Twig really embracing that mentality for it. Genetics pushed away. Cuvo Fred trying to steal away this red buff. May be able to do so, but Big Man Tings has to confirm Cuvo. Very worse for wear on the Benjamin. He's got to blink away. A pull in by Neil is going to force Nitroyo to roll away. And that sets up not just for the safety of Vo, maybe not so. Up to the sky he goes, Nitroid with a sliver of health trying to find through. He looks like he'll make it out for the time being. In comes Cuvo Fred, but not going to done by Genetics. We'll be able to pick that one up. Big Man Tings gets the credit for the kill, and maybe one more after. Double kill for the mid lane.
Genetics is nuts, bro. That play, everything that went into that play was so big brain. Like the effectiveness of your bans doesn't end up being that high because he's going to do it to you on the next pick. So who cares? Let him pick whatever he wants. At least don't let Big Man get something like Tiamat.
Well, we'll see how they can go from that kind of mental shattering gank on that side of the map. Genetics really playing lights out onto the Cerberus. Leap over the wall by Tings. Genetics gets pulled in by Neil. He's going to pick up 2 with the ultimate. Throws them right into the spin and consume out of Tings. Will do some damage to Neil, and Captain Twig continuing to chase him down. Not going to get the stun on the tether. Instead, he'll get stunned on the back end of it. Leap in by Nika, but Captain Twig gets it. Turnaround kill, but it's a double kill for Dardes all the while, and Neil getting low. He's not going to make it out. Variety able to clean him up.
But Dardes still 1 hit away from getting his triple. It's Vote going in and needs the Bifrost to take of it. Does not in time. Variety gets cleaned up by Nika, and it's a 3 for 3 across the board. The big deal is that both mid laners get some kills and ultimately stay alive. 2 kills now for both sides. Find a home there for Vote.
Twig going over to the blue buff. Nitroyo trying to secure his own purple. Neil walks forward and gets the dash, but immediately regrets having to go through there. He'll have to crawl away from Nitroid, who managed to pick up his buff. Captain Twig and Genetics will go over towards the Pyromancer.
Still a little bit of time now for the Camelot Kings because this has been their strategy basically all year long. Just not get a little bit too aggressive in the early game, farm it out, trust. Still good vision dominance here from the Warriors. They've got plenty of ideas of what's going to happen around this objective. Next step is actually being able to do something with it.
Genetics getting low. Cuvo has to use the ult. Sunder breaks the shield. In goes Captain Twig with a big win to Shamash. Revive comes out by Neil to keep Cuvo Fred alive, but it's Variety on the backside with Twig still running at them, but Twig doesn't have the health to do so. Tings will now jump to the back line, but they've already lost 2 on the side of the Kings, and maybe going to be losing a 3rd one as Nitroid falls in a double kill for Nika.
Nika unanswered on his backline dive, ends up getting 2. And look at the difference between Game 1 and Game 2 of how these teams fight. Is a good bait from Vote. Nika was still around the corner, and Variety didn't know about it, but it's actually a bait for Variety! Big Man Tings is right there to clean up the drop kick Heimdall.
Well, the spear is good, but not good enough to take down Variety. A nice bait from the solo laner sets up for mid to get a nice kill. Now 3-0-2, and he might be looking for 4. The slow comes out from the minion, but not enough range on that damage for Tings to be able to confirm the kill. So Nika will make it out just for now.
Man, that's the real good punish, though, from the Warriors, to be able to identify how that fight was going to go. It's a perfectly timed Sunder from Genetics. Good snipes coming from Netrioid, but if Netrioid has used his snipe already, then my Odin cage is going to be awfully good if I'm Nika, and he finds a perfect one on the back line. Big man really just ditches his ADC, and he gets punished for it.
Despite the status of the last fight, it's the Kings back on the Gold Fury, down under half. Neil and Cuvo here. Cuvo goes to the back with the ultimate. Kings get the Gold Fury. Cuvo gets out, but so do the rest of the Kings. They're all trying to leave. Captain Twig gets pulled back in by Neil, but a full retreat from the Camelot Kings. And an attempt at least. Genex will go for the ultimate just for some kind of safety, but Nika not going to get thrown back. And Neil not going to find anyone.
I mean, Nika still has his cage, but he knows Genetics still has his leap. Then Nika's going to look for Netrioid, but he has his ultimate as well. I don't know how much the Warriors can get off this.
Nika's going to throw the cage. He's going to get kicked right back up against it. Variety on the front line for him. Netrioid on the backside of the cage just trying to get a way out. Dardes throws out the ultimate, only going to hit a couple shots of it into the realms. Goes one, waiting for the crash on the bottom side. Nika going to be a little bit early on the bird bomb, but ultimately Variety will fall. Vote getting the credit for the kill.
Just a good chase, I suppose, from the Warriors, knowing that Duo has got to synchronize his dive with Nika. Even on these fights that have gone well for the Warriors, it's been Fred in first, Nika in afterwards. I don't think that plan is going to continue to work. I think they need to be on the same page and blinking in total sync with one another in order to actually put pressure.
Oni Warriors get the Pyromancer. Cage drops down, but it's Big Man Tings on the back throwing out the damage. Cyclone is still pushing on to Neil, gets the revive out of him, but Tings will be the one who falls down. Neil gets a nice root to confirm that kill. As they get the Pyromancer, they get one. They might be getting another one here. Over the wall goes Nika, but he doesn't have a cage to get a lockdown and immunes the drop kick with that spear.
Netroid's still pushing. Yeah, I thought the Warriors might just decide to pull this. Twig is low, but still has his ultimate. No ult for Genetics. Variety's going to have to be the one that they deal with because he's very healthy and has his wins available.
Gonna get one drop kick onto Dardes. Fire Giant still going here. Variety getting CC'd down, drops the wins on top of Neil. Genetics will be the one to get it. Fire Giant has not been leashed yet. Genetics will likely fall here to Nika.
Oh,
Fire Giant still going through. Cubo Fred getting low. Variety holding onto it, but steps in a pool and Vote punishes him in kind with it. Fire Giant, by the way, never fell down, and Netroid is still pushing that left-hand side. Twig gonna walk forward, but as soon as he does, he gets put right back in the dirt. Vote gets the kill onto it, but the Fire Giant gets the credit for the kill onto it. And finally, the Oni Warrior is able to drop it down, and with 4 kills to boot.
Man, what a nail-biter. To get the kills, they target select well, and they end up doing just enough in order to get the Fire Giant.
We're going to get a nice little replay on the double kill there for Vote. He's still sitting on the outskirts of that fire ring, walks in, and he doesn't have any lifesteal to my knowledge in that build right now, so he's just taking all the damage. He ults through the fire ring and then decides to walk right back into it, and that ultimately sealed the deal.
You know what? I actually think he did need to walk back through in order to kill it, though.
Spreadsheet performizer of people dying to the Fire Giant damage on that one, so Fire Giant with a nice extra kill in his column this game. But meanwhile, Tier 1 tower in mid does fall down. Looking towards Tier 2 now is Neil and Vote. They get a root onto Genetics and gets the ultimate very early out of him. Not going to get much out of it except for the beads from Neilma. He'll be forced to leap back. And 4 pushing in on the left-hand side. Meanwhile, Nika comes around the corner with the cage, gets the Phantom out of the Kings. Netroid falling low. Genetics getting pulled to the back line, and Vote will make sure to put him down. Add another kill onto his column, 4 and 3 for the Hunter.
Man, in a perfect position, too, because he still has his ultimate, still has his beads up and available. He is chilling.
Variety going to go into the front line, but he's going to be forced to go right back to his own back line. Left side, Phoenix still not the main target for the Warriors. They're looking for kills. Tings jumps in aggressively, gets a nice Typhoon. Netroid looking for snipes, but with the res coming through, he knows he's not going to have enough damage to confirm. Drops right back down, but maybe towards his death. Cubo Fred goes into the back. Nice drop kick holds him away, and the Aegis will make sure that the Ren doesn't clean him up. Instead, it'll be Nico takes him down, but Big Mans will grab Cubo along the way. Kill for Netrioid, but the Phoenix will fall as well.
But that was still a great turnaround, and because it's still going, Vote just able to escape. I don't know if Dardes is going to be quite as lucky.
He's going to have to try and get away from here, but it's a big triple kill for Big Man Tings, who puts his 6th one on the board just this game alone.
Man, Variety has had a bit of a tough game as Vote is still here. He's killed Variety. I looked away for a half a second, and Vote still trying to stand tall against 2.
He doesn't have the lifesteal for it, but if he can get a couple more basics with that Odysseus bow, maybe he can get the nice bounce kill. But look, Genetics has respawned, and he's going to cut off the path for Vote. He throws out the sword just to get a little bit of vision onto it, but he doesn't see Genetics creeping up behind. But ultimately, it will be Captain Twig who takes else on the right side of it. Netroid will go back to base. He's able to pick up what looks to be his Aussie, or at least pick up Sentry Ward. Worried about the damage that comes back to it. And that forces Big Man Tings to rotate to the left side and again deal with these fire minions that there's still 2 waves pushing down, and he can't stick around too long. He's a lot of the damage that these Kings have to offer.
Fire's pulled, but certainly not a commit quite yet from the Warriors. They saw Big Man on the left-hand side.
Mika goes in, drops the cage, and it's going to force Netrioid to roll away. Genetics jumps out, stun onto Netrioid. Phoenix has respawned on the left-hand side, but Cuvo Fred is in the midst of them all. Netrioid up in the sky looking for the snipe, manages to get 2 out of the 3. Vote down to a quarter health. Nika barely at half with the help of that shield, slowed down by Tings, who's still looking for more damage on the back end of it. But nobody can find the lockdown to keep these players in tow.
Someone's got a back if you're the Kings, and a good 2 from Neil Moss. Stopped the back right there for Captain Twig. Neil's just trying to keep him occupied, but Variety, he's got different plans entirely.
He's going to get 2 rooted under the tower, but he doesn't have the damage to confirm and take down Nika. And just as quickly as that left side Phoenix respawned, it's down yet again. So the fire minions are going to start pushing into that Titan again. But it's going to be the Kings who start up the fire. They're going to start making as many strides as they can towards taking it down. Half held, Twig on the front, but he gets plucked back in. Beads are used, Ruination and stun by Genetics. That's going to be a revive onto Neil himself. They're not going to have that second chance ultimate, and the Odysseus bow proc from Netrioid is going to be the one to take him down. Through the realms goes one, and I'm sure on landing, Twig is going to go down. Dardes the one who gets the final hit. Drop kick onto Nika, pushes him back. And the fire minions continue to push down into the throne room. Man,
unfortunate timing again right there. Apologies for that, but it looks like we are back in it. Nika has his cage up and ready, but no blink anymore. So Warriors, yeah, they lose Neil, but he still got beads. He still got Sunder. He's chilling. Dardes still has all of his relics, and he had a really good ult that fight, by the way, to force the Aegis out for Big Man and do a lot of damage at the same time.
Fire minion wave still pushing in on that left-hand side, and you see the Lizards pushing up the mid lane along with Variety. They're gonna need to send somebody back, and that somebody is Captain Twig. He's got his Mannequin Hidden Blade online now, so looking for some extra damage, but Nika looking for a few. He drops the cage. Genetics well under half health, but so is Nika. He's getting chunked down. Ult comes out from Genetics, and Netrioid gonna be the one to pick him up, but it's Cuba, Fred, and Dardes who find 2 on the backside. Tings is low. Ruination finds no one. Leap in from Cubo, trying to take down the mid laner, but he's slowed by Variety. Drop kick. It's going to be beads down. Ultimate comes out from Neil to let Cuvo continue to push in, but he's not able to find the kill, but he does manage to get out.
Man, so close. It was a good idea from Neil. Use the ultimate to give him some speed, but it still ends up not being enough in order to catch Big Man, who ends up escaping just barely, and that is huge. The Big Man stays up and available. And with Cuvo getting too low, with Nika dying, no one here to tank up this fire if Neil needs to be zoning. So the Warriors can't really put pressure on it quite yet.
Now enhanced Fire Giant as we pass over that 30-minute threshold. That's the big one for everybody. Pyromancer started up by the Warriors, but Captain Twig will steal it over the wall with the tether. Variety's going to leap over his own wall to get back to safety from the 3 of the Warriors.
Neil immediately back towards Fire to pull it. Now Neil's gone fairly offensive with the build again, goes for an Ethereal Staff. So maybe not as tanky as he might need to be around this EFG.
Speaking of the EFG, down to almost half health now. Vote and Neil, the only ones in the pit dealing the damage. That's all coming from Vote at this point. Genetics walks through. The root comes down, forces the leap out of Genetics. Into the back goes Cuvo Fred. He still has his ultimate, but it's Variety who's in danger. Drops the winds, has to leap away. Into the cage from Nika. Gets broken down immediately, but Variety never made it out of the back line, and Dardes will put him down.
It's stun over the wall, but it's not going to be enough damage for Big Man to be willing to commit. The big deal here is that the Kings backline has all their relics still. They still have Beads Aegis on both members. They don't answer these waves, but after that, they don't need to worry about it anymore. So the Kings are almost out of the weeds.
The question is, who are they going to send back to deal with it? Even if they do, it looks like they just want to go for this Fire Giant instead. Nika drops the cage on a Netroid, and he's not able to make it back. The Fear catches the roll. Genetics grabs 2, but only throws back 1. It's Vote, and immediately pushed back against the wall by the Dragon Flight out of Dardes, and that quickly makes it a 2-kill swing.
Man, it's just cage after cage that finds Netrioid why is he getting caged? Why is he up close enough? In order to be in that position, you have to force Nika to at least blink and jump in order to cage you at that position. You can't let him just blink onto you and be in range. I think that's a positioning misplay there from the Kings ADC.
Captain Twig just trying to play distraction against the Warriors. He's holding Nika and Dart is at bay, but they don't care. The enhanced Fire Giant was still being done that entire time and will go the way of the Warriors. Maybe they can get a turnaround kill here, though, as Nika's caught out, shield and drop kicked against the wall. He's got the leap right into the wind, drops the cage down. Twig jumps over with his own ultimate, but stunned out immediately. And somehow, even in the midst of 3, Nika still makes it out, and the Warriors push up the right.
And it really wasn't even very close. That they didn't even get close to killing him, and they lose their right side Phoenix for it. But the fights where Nika's able to start the fight by blink caging Netroid have all gone pretty well for the Warriors. So something's got to change on their side.
And all the while the Kings have just been trying to defend against their base, the Warriors take yet another Fury. Primal Fury goes down their way, and now looking towards the mid Phoenix. They've got a weakened one on the left, and will finally now be able to start making their assault towards the mid. I say that, but instantly they make their way over to try and deal with that weakened Phoenix. Fire minions pushing in on the right-hand side, and they're having Nika make sure to keep those waves going through, and Captain Twig is the one who's been defending against him.
Nika not being near Netroid is probably a win for the Kings. I'm a little surprised the Warriors are trying to split this map. I mean, it's so good with EFG to split because it just takes your, every ADC auto counts for a 10th of the Phoenix HP instead of a 20th like it normally would. But the 5-on-5s with Nika centered around them has been so good for the Warriors. I'm surprised that they aren't trying to force that.
Nika gets drop kicked against the wall and has to leap back over, but into the Phoenix they will go. Left side down to half. Big Man Tings jumped on by Cuvo. Fred still looking for the damage onto it. Ult by Genetics. Won't find anyone. Netroid up into the sky, but all for naught as no one is within threshold to die to the damage from it. Left side Phoenix goes down and onto the mid they go.
Rare miscommunication there between Netroid and Genetics. It wasn't until the autos were already through that the Phantom came out.
Captain Twig doing a lot of damage to Neil Ma. Variety goes into the backline. He's down to half and has to leap away, but Big Man Tings finds a big kill onto Neil Ma. Leap in, out of Cuvo Fred. Double kill for Big Man Tings. Cuvo Fred getting low. Captain Twig will chase him down and put 3 on the board for the fight. And Nika still living through all of it, is finding one. Might be getting a second one as Captain Twig gets low, but Nika doesn't have the damage. Variety kicks him back against the wall, but all the while the Fire Minion still pushing to the Titan.
And who's going to be able to stop them? It's not going to be Genetics. A good stun on the Vote, but he still has his beats.
Vote's going to have to use the ult to get away. Wins a Shamash come down, and Vote immediately gets the reset with the Bifrost, but he's met by Captain Twig on the backside. Nika still pushing in, gets the cage onto Genetics, forces the leap, and a kill by Nika. And it looks like the Warriors might be able to end this one out. Well, I say that, but Vote immediately gets jumped on. He gets taken down.
Yeah, this has been the story. It's Nika still alive and everyone else around him potentially falling. And Nika is just acting as the shepherd towards these Fire Minions. But every wave that comes in and then dies before the next wave comes in just resets the Titan. So no shot that Nika can end. He should be able to get this Phoenix unless he gets body blocked away.
He is getting pushed away, barely able to manage to get that one out. Nika may finally die in this instance. You have to at this point. They're so deep into the base, and Netroid gets them with the snipe from the Astral Barrage. But look, another wave on the left-hand side. They just don't have a way to get out of their own base.
But finally. Or Netroid's got to be in a position where he can't get blink caged. That's been every fight starter for the Warriors, is Netroid getting blink caged. It's got to change.
Netroid starting up the Fire Giant with Captain Twig. Once again, another enhanced. Sigil comes out and forces Netroid away, well under half health. Ult in by by Captain Twig onto Neil Ma. But Neil is not deterred by it one bit. In fact, Tings is at half health. Dardes at half himself, caught out all alone on this right-hand side. Captain Twig will try and chase, but Neil gets a nice root. Leap in by Big Man. Gets the Dragon Flight out. Dardes is still on the run. Nobody has taken this mid laner down, but finally Variety gets the drop kick to put him back.
No, all of a sudden it's looking good for the Kings. Their Titan is A-okay. Still 3 Phoenixes down, but no waves coming.
Cuvo Fred in the middle gets a 4-man ult, but not quite the damage he was looking for. But here comes Nika looking for Netroid. Will take him down. Cage holds 3. The Phantom comes out, but it's more than enough damage on the leap out from Genetics to take him down. Double kill for Nika and maybe more as Vote grabs Variety, and they're still looking for Captain Twig. Only Big Man Tings will be left if they can take down the jungler. Captain Twig's able to live for a while. Spear comes through, but it's not a stun. Leap in is enough. Triple kill for Nika, and only Big Man Tings left to defend against the onslaught of the Warriors. It looks like the Kings will fall down, and the Warriors are going to bring us to a Game 3.
What an unbelievable game. I mean, Big Man's still here, has his Aegis, has got to kill everyone, and Vote is just doing way too much damage. You called it, J-Mac. Game 3 incoming. Can you remember a game that has been carried so hard by a solo laner as Nika just did for the Warriors?
Makes Odin look better than he is. Odin is not that good. I'd even go as far as to say Nika isn't that good. No player has ever been that good before, ever. I mean, this is just some of the best performance. I'm speaking directly to the weebs in chat now. That was plus Ultra, United States of Smash, Super Saiyan, Bankai, whatever you want to say to describe it, because Nika went above and beyond. I put out a tweet and said he essentially willed his team into the victory. That's what happened here. Nika looked like LeBron in the finals. And I can't go any further than that. It's hard to break down the level of play. I mean, because all you can do is say what happened. There's nothing I can say about that Nika did not show inside the gameplay. He was consistently finding 3-man cages. He was consistently getting into the enemy backline. He was the first one in and the last one out, and not for lack of trying. My man wanted to die, but no one had the damage output to put it into him. It's ridiculous. I mean, Odin's not that good. I mean it wholeheartedly. Odin is not this type of god. He's not going to hyper carry your games like that, but somehow, some way, Nika just did it.
It starts with a solo kill in the solo lane, Mifflin, and it just all transpires into something even greater here for the Oni Warriors in game number 2. And it's the player damage that I'm really taking note of. 47,500 out of the Odin alone. Only person who came close. And now for game number 3, picks and bans, Camelot Kings will be first pick yet again. Oni Warriors seem all too content, and I have a hunch, Mifflin, they're going to be totally cool with letting Big Man Tings get that Tiamat. I don't think that the Oni Warriors feel as though Tiamat is the issue here. I think that they believe that Nika is just going to be able to run it down again if he gets Odin.
Bro, I forgot that the Kings had Tiamat, Gilgamesh, and Osiris as their top 3. What a insane composition.
Oh, we both rode really high on that composition.
Yeah, I thought they were going to
win. It was an insane draft, but just because it looks good on paper doesn't mean that the execution will follow suit. Just a couple of factors there that the Kings need to polish over if they want to find themselves as the winners of this set. Because right now, Mifflin seems as though that second place in the standings could become a little bit more questionable here for the Kings should they fall to the Oni Warriors. And this could be a very heavy heat-up moment for the Oni Warriors if they're able to bring this one home.
And the Oni Warriors are sticking to their guns here. They said, Genetics, bud, you're not going to be able to play at your best. We're going to remove your best pieces. So far, it's been Terra and Ymir every single time inside of this first phase, and the Oni Warriors are going to go ahead and keep that up, and I can't fault him for it. We've seen what Genetics can do when he's playing at that absolute highest tier, and, well, maybe make it a little bit harder for the Oni Warriors to find these dives. So, instead, they're going to go ahead and keep addressing him inside the P's and B's, and this is the adaptation I was looking for. This might be the most valuable play we've seen all set so far. Let's just get him off the Odin. Odin banned out. Good stuff, Kings.
But Oni Warriors, they're going to allow that Tiamat to go through. And if the Camelot Kings want it one more time here for Big Man Tings, they could certainly opt to take it. Morgan Le Fay also up for grabs here. But with the showings that Big Man Tings has had so far throughout this set, it makes perfect sense why he feels comfortable reflecting or snap blocking back to the Tiamat yet again. Osiris, Gilgamesh, though, both still up for grabs, and a prime opportunity, I think, for the Oni Warriors to establish at least one of those pieces in their name.
Man, it's times like this that I wish Gormizer was on the desk with us so I could ask him how many other gods have had 100% game participation. Tiamat has been picked 21% of the time and banned 79% of the time. She is in some fashion in every single SPL match. That's how dominant she's been since release, and the Kings have got her all 3 games now. Oni Warriors, though, have got exactly what they wanted in response, the Osiris and the Morgan Le Fay. This is a exact mirror of what we saw in Game 1.
And was waiting for the Gilgamesh pick to come through because you know it doesn't take long for teams to snag that Gilgamesh whenever he's up for grabs. A couple of picks that I think deserve some honorary mentions is maybe the Fenrir. That's something that we haven't really seen a whole lot of, and then again, just not really a pick that I think either of these teams tends to prioritize all that often up against each other. The Khepri instead seems to be the focal point here for the Kings. Not going to allow Neilmaw to have the opportunity to look for that Scare's Blessing for his own. But the Achilles switch up, a nice, I think the Achilles putting that execute threat into the mix is certainly going to pose a little bit more hesitation here for the Kings.
Yeah, this Achilles also brings decent flex potential, could go into the jungle, could also head into solo, as Osiris can do both of those things as well. So it's going to keep the Kings guessing a little bit insofar as where these gods are going to be allocated within the draft. If I had to lean one way or the other, I think it likely will be Achilles inside the jungle so that he can get involved a little bit earlier on, try and bring those executes in. But Achilles is not the premier Khepri counter. You want gods like Thanatos, like Aokwang, who essentially cannot be stopped inside of the execute. The Achilles execute is pretty easy to block if you're playing cognizant of it, so it could make it a little bit harder to perform for the Oni Warriors. But that said, just taking into account their first 3 picks, the Oni Warriors that is, it is a incredibly strong front line, and Morgan Le Fay, who's going to be dealing decent damage from a range. So far, or if you want to go all the way back to Game 1, the Kings dealt with this Morgan Le Fay with superior dive potential. It was the Gilgamesh, it was a couple other warriors. The Tiamat was also acting as that front line. So far, the Kings have got slightly weaker dive potential. They've got more survivability in their dive thanks to Scarab's Blessing, but Khepri's going to struggle a little bit more so to get involved in the back line.
What are some pieces you would like to see round things out here for the Camelot Kings? Because it's the initiation that seems to be the primary concern here for the Kings in terms of counter initiation up against this Oni Warriors composition so far, Mifflin. So if it is a Xbalanque, do you think that would be the pickup that would make the difference?
I want to see a little bit more consistent CC from the Hunter out of the Kings, something like an On Her to drop a pillar to just act as disruption inside the backline, make it a little bit easier to chase them out, and it makes it a little bit easier to perform as a frontliner, and that is what's going to be locked in here. The pillars is just so good when you have something like a Gilgamesh on your team as well. Wins a Shamash plus the pillar means that really there's just about no escape. So now the CC lockdown is really nice from the Kings here, and Cerberus is going to act as a great initiator in of his own right, as beads burning, as well as just phenomenal AoE CC. The Kings come away with a very good draft, but it puts a lot of the onus on the BMT to perform on this Tiamat. He is going to be the most consistent source of damage for this draft, and, well, he did a ton of damage in Game 2, but getting outshone by an Odin a little
Achilles
bit.
pentas recently. I think he's had 2 Achilles pentas in the last, 2 weeks or something like that. So you know he's warm on the god. He's been playing it a lot. And I love the pick. I love where they picked it. I love the strategy of it, because so much of what we saw in Game 2 was genetics on this Cerberus, who made incredible plays in the laning phase, who played really well in the early, just unable to peel for Netrioid in the mid to late game. And that was the difference. As Variety once again nearly dead, but it's Nika who jukes the paralyzing spit. All Variety needed to do was land one part of it, and that would have been the end for Nika. And we could have all been talking about how Nika should have stuck to the Odin. He's an Odin 1 trick. But as it stands, he's still A-OK in this lane. Going back to my point, I think that the shortcomings for the Kings in Game 2 were Netrioid's positioning and inability to kill the Odin. And maybe if he gets his first blood, which he will. I'm trying to make a point, fellas. God, there's fighting in both lanes. I like the fact that they picked a Peel God for genetics, because that's what they needed to do, but then they counter with the Achilles. It's really smart. J-Mac, talk about the kill.
Just walk over, get a nice drop kick onto Neilmon with no beads on the elephant. The dash is already down at that point. They're just able to get a nice and clean kill in true on her Khepri fashion. You pull him back in, now he's out of position, and immediately you can just throw him in, get that impale on top of it.
Really nuts plays with this god recently. I mean, impales to save his life off blinks and things of that nature. That's what I want to see from him here on this on her.
I mean, solo kills, probably the most recent one I can think is the nice little solo kills on the Zapman earlier on into the season, but with this on her, you have a lot of options for it. He's going to leap in immediately, throw out the pillar, and into the Desert's Fury. Up into the sky goes Vote. Dharmic pillars drop down, and they're waiting for him to land back on the ground. Netroid
one auto?
Impaled, shoots out one auto, but the minions are enough to take him down. Double kill for Vote, able to take down both of the dual lane.
All right, so like I was saying, Ganesh is just the best support in the game. You should pick him all the time.
Themselves. about 1,000 gold lead, and like you said, some experience into that dual lane, specifically on Vote. Ult comes through from Variety, and a little bit of miscommunication as to where he was being thrown. Twig doesn't get him with the leap, and Nika makes it out.
Opposition. He had one that opened up a Fire Giant for the Warriors, but that was due to some pretty aggressive positioning, to say the least. Maybe the Osiris this time can close the gap and make it happen, or maybe Achilles is enough damage to actually complete the dive.
Neil gets caught out, wins a Shamash, drop down by Twig. Into the back goes Variety, looking for a pull onto Neil, throws him inside his own pillars, and a nice stun on top. But there's no further follow-up from the rest of the Kings. Now Variety is caught into the midst of it. The Sigil and the Silence is good. And the ult from Genetics will make sure that Variety's got the extra mobility to get out, and a nice pluck by Genetics. Make sure that he still lives, but Nika will eventually grab him under the tower to get a nice kill.
Right on time, right as Scarab's Blessing falls off. That could not have been better timed there for the ult in from the Osiris and the Rom at the exact same point. Just too deep from Variety. Definitely was on a different page than the rest of the squad.
Now Genetics might be a little too deep as he's being zoned out by 3. The Dragonflight misses, but not the execute. Nika picks him up and gets a second kill on the board for the solo laner. The way a little bit in favor for that dual lane. Variety going to be spotted out on a ward as he walks over towards Fire Giant. Genetics looking for something aggressive here. Neilma's going to get jumped on, pulled through, but they're focusing something onto Vote. Desert's Fury comes through. Neilma stuck inside the winds, and he will fall down. Kill for Captain Twig.
And that's just a good commit onto a Ganesh that does not have the tools to stop that from happening. So if he doesn't go for some protection, hasn't really gotten many auto attacks off with the protections quite yet, but maybe that'll change around this Gold Fury.
Neil pushing forward against Captain Twig will spot him out. Genetics at the Fury Pit, looking for someone, getting some wards through. Drop kick onto Neil. He's stuck up against the pillar and body blocked in, which is Samash are good to hold him for a while, but Neil gets caught out by Variety and Big Man on the back. Big Man Tings will be the one to take him down. Desert's Fury gets the Aegis out of Vote. Up into the sky he goes to delay for just a little while longer, but he's got all 5 members of the Kings waiting for him on the ground, and Netrioid will be the one to put him in the dirt.
Variety jumps forward. Stygian Torment gets the beads from Dardes, but that should do it for the fight that the Warriors are going to be able to put up. Can't imagine they want to go in and try and contest this Gold Fury. Down 5v3. Duo lane is way too far forward there from the Warriors.
Half health on the Fury, half health on Cuvo Fred. A Sigil comes out to fear away Big Man Ting to the Gold Fury, gets leashed. Nika at half health is forced to use the Fatal Strike to get out of danger, and that allows for the Camelot Kings to pick up the Gold Fury.
Really good discipline there from the Kings. They don't try and mess around and steal it away, or coin flip the Gold Fury. Instead, they drop DPS appropriately as soon as Nika comes in, and are able to force his ultimate to get out of danger, and then go back to finish the Fury after the fact.
And the Kings can now start posturing up towards the Fire Giant. However, Big Man Tings is all the way on the left-hand side. He'll have to make a far rotation over to that side of the map. He's made it into the mid. Nika finds Captain Twig into the back. Rogue Leap is good. Dharmic Pillars drop down, and immediately everybody walks out. Heavenly Agility just to make sure they're not slowed down. Nice little pickup there by Genetics.
Ooh.
A stun onto Cuvo Fred, gets the Lord of the Afterlife.
And that's been the story for this Osiris. Lord of the Afterlife away. Again, Fred is at the bottom of the player damage charts. This time only 400 damage up from the Kepri on the other side. It's not enough.
Cuvo gonna get knocked up by the Typhoon afterwards, but he'll be able to make it out for the time being. But no Lord of the Afterlife, he has no steal, no engage, and Fire Giant as well under half health. Genetics gets a root on 2 into the back and a pluck onto Nika. Make sure the Fire Giant goes the way of the Kings. But it looks like they're not sure if they want to go for the fight or for the retreat. It looks like they will make the call to walk away.
And Nika just doesn't have the option to just
on defense.
I mean, no one can. The Camelot Kings are just grouped up. Normally you could Rom snipe down that Gilgamesh as he gets low, but with the Kepri right next to him, that obviously is not going to work. Love the play from the Kings.
And right back to the left side tower they go. Netroid gonna walk forward. Desert's Fury onto Dardes, takes him down to half health, well under half health, and the tower will also start to take some damage. Variety gets a nice 2-man ult and a setup for a stun onto Neil. Good body blocks from him. We'll keep him at bay. Now Nika gets impaled against the wall. Ohm comes out from Neil to push everyone away. A couple of snipes in from Vote. Don't do a whole lot of damage, but it's enough to keep these Camelot Kings pushed back. Well, I say that, but they go right in onto Cuvo Fred, well under half health. Lord of the Afterlife out. The Dragonflight just to make sure that Variety gets pushed away.
Man, love that play coming from Genetics, and I was wondering, how did those snipes do no damage? I feel like there should have been more damage on the Kings after that fight. I didn't realize, look at what Genetics has bought. He's bought Mail of Renewal, number 1, and number 2, it's a meditation on top of that. That meditation pulsing throughout the team fight
Right away,
as
the
those
Kings start setting up. So you're ready for this next Fire Giant set to spawn in just a couple of seconds. 4-4 on the scoreboard. Has not been a very kill-heavy game, but that's not to say anything short of how much fighting there has been.
plenty of it, but not a lot of kills. I mean, it's just been defensive ultimates away, pretty tanky lineups on both sides, no real surprise.
Well, Neil gets pushed up against the pillar, stuck inside the winds and the dart, and it'll be Big Man Tings who takes him out. The revive onto Captain Twig just to make sure that he can stay alive and stay healthy. That'll allow for the jungler to make it out.
Still, you lose Neil instantly, no beads for him. He's really feeling the pain of all this CC, a great pillar impale from Netrioid, and Neil is instantly just toast. And again, he has to be so far forward because no one else will be from the Warriors. But if he's so far forward, then he's just going to get picked because he's got no CC immunity and no engage of his own. This composition from the Warriors really struggling to get these fights started in a good way for them.
Well, beads out of Nika means his initiation is going to be a little less safe as the Fire Giant's down to half health already with Netroid and Big Man Tings doing the brunt of the damage, but no one on the Warriors wants to step up. Fire Giant goes the way of the Kings.
Still the same story. No one can get in from the Warriors quite yet. Vote maybe needs to be your fight starter, I guess. I mean, just start sniping down on a big man, force the jump is really the hope, but then he's without an ultimate. You know, that's the trade-off that you kind of have to take when you're the ROM. Maybe that's how the Warriors should be starting the fights, because Vote has been holding on to that ultimate pretty late.
Well, waiting in the wings is Cuvo Fred for his chance to jump in. Under the Phoenix they go. Dragonflight pushes 2 away from Dardez. Cuvo's still looking for a path in, but can't quite find it. Doesn't have that option. They've spotted him out. Variety and Captain Twig will both leap over to him, but he'll make it back to the safety of his Tier 2 tower. Meanwhile, under the Phoenix they will go. Genetics gonna get pushed away. Captain Twig taking well over half his health. The Fatal Strike is not going to be there for the execute. Instead, it'll be Cuvo finally getting aggressive with the ultimate. Pops the revive out, so Captain Twig will make it for the time being. Desert's Fury comes through, but not enough damage. They got what they want. They got the bird, and they're trying so desperately to make it out, but Nika's not making it easy for them.
Oh, turn around on the Dardez, and he is toast. Big man with his 3rd kill of the contest, and now Nika is left to the Wolves as well. Great counter engage coming from the Kings.
No beads left for that solo laner after the initial fight at the fire means he gets taken down instantly, and it might be the same thing for Neil Ma. He gets caught out on the root and stunned, and into the throne room the Kings will go. Big Man Tings looking for more damage onto the enemy as well. It's just taking down the Titan. It's at half health, and Vote and Cuvo just do not have the damage to take it down. In fact, Vote will fall down to Netroid and a double kill for him to close it out and give the Kings their 2-1 victory over the Oni Warriors.
I mean, that
Around the Fire Giant as consistently as it was. So what are the takeaways from this set, Taco? Well, probably don't want to have Big Man Tings just running Tiamat 3 out of 3 games. Seems like that's pretty hard to deal with. Outside of that, probably don't want to allow Genetics to play whatever he wants, because he's still looking good despite having 5-6 bans tossed his way every single game.
And a soft counter pick to boot. The Achilles execute, while Nika was able to find some successful instances with it, it just ultimately came down, Mifflin, to the simple fact that the Tiamat, when combined alongside these other factors here that the Camelot Kings had going for them, just too much pressure and burst for the Oni Warriors to ever really effectively look for full team wipes that could actually amount to them looking for those same objective pools. I think that strip away of the Odin via the ban was also a very smart switch up that definitely seemed to cater to the Camelot Kings' favor here. And as far as the Oni Warriors are concerned, though, sure, Game 3 didn't pan out the way that they were probably hoping, but again, I don't think that it can be exclusively placed into one specific member. Sure, Neil had a tough time on the Ganesh, but on that same note, I do feel as though, you know, the Ganesh is probably something that's practiced. It's something that they probably have a lot of trust in. It just seems as though the Camelot Kings execution was one step ahead for this set.
Yeah, gotta agree. You gotta give credit where it's due. I want to highlight that Khepri pick as well. It just felt like it was making it a lot easier for Captain Twig to perform. Coming off a rough week last week, now has that safety net inside of the Scarab's Blessing and was allowed to do just about anything he wanted. A lot of the fights around Fire Giant were just Gilgamesh jumping in, dropping his ult.
Camelot Kings, at least, with this set victory, they're going to find themselves sitting pretty still at that second place position here in the standings. 5-2 in their win-loss category, Mifflin. And as for the Oni Warriors, they'll stay near the middle of the pack there. But the standings, I think, a little bit deceiving in terms of some of these Oni Warriors performances that we've been seeing as of late. Keep your eyes, though, on the Valhalla Valkyries and the Olympus Bolts. Like we already mentioned earlier, Camelot Kings, they seal the deal with that second place for the time being. But up next, we're going to be seeing those Olympus Bolts up against the Valhalla Valkyries, and Olympus Bolts looking to make a little bit of history with a nice win streak if they're able to close this one out.